Hey everybody, it's Chris from Cali Raised LED, and today we're going to be installing our 2014 and up front bumper. The first step today is to prepare our bumper for installation. We're going to put our LED on, we're going to put our winch on, we're going to do everything we need so that when we slide this thing up there, it's ready to go. The first step is going to be mounting our light bar. This bumper holds a dual row light bar, 32 inches wide. We're going to install our mounts to this, and then we're going to install it to the bumper. To begin, we got to take our brackets and put them on the tabs in the bumper. The way that they're oriented is the tab is going to be pointing towards the front of the bumper, and the inside is going to be pointing towards the center. So they're both going to be facing each other, pointing ahead. We're going to set them on their mounting spots. We're going to grab a 5/16 bolt, put on a washer, put the bolt through the mount, put on another washer and a lock nut. Do the same for the other side. With our tabs loosely in here, now we can put our light in place. Finally, we're going to put the bolts into the light. With your bolt, slide over a lock washer, then a regular washer. This will go through the LED mount and into the light. Doing the same thing for the other side. A lock washer, a regular washer, and install the bolt into the LED. With everything on hand tight, we're now going to grab our Allen wrench and we're going to tighten these bolts on our LED into a more firm. And then we're going to get our light positioned and we're going to tighten our bolts down on the bottom. After everything's in place and locked in, then we'll go back and tighten these up all the way. With everything snugged up, we're now going to go around to the other side and we're going to center and position our light. With our light where we want it, we're now going to go ahead and finish tightening the bottom bolt and the Allen bolt. Next, we're going to install our fair lead. Simply goes in place, and then we install the hardware that's included with our fair lead depending on which winch you get. Get it in place and tighten everything down. The next step is to get our winch installed onto the bumper. To begin, we've got to install our square nuts into the base of the winch. There's 4 positions, 2 on the back side, 2 on the front side. Now we're going to put the winch into the bumper. Before you get too far, take your winch rope and push it through your fair lead. Now we're going to take the included hardware with our winch and put our bolts in through the bottom. There are holes in the main skin so you can go all the way through, but with the bumper off, we can reach this one just by reaching in from the bottom. With these 2 in hand tight, now I'm going to flip the bumper back so I can access the front 2 and tighten everything down. After tightening up your winch, the bumper's now ready to get installed, and it's time to prepare our 4Runner to accept the bumper. The first step we got to do is remove this top plastic piece. It's simply removing these push pins. You just push them in and they pop loose. Make sure not to lose them, they're easy to lose. With all the pins out, lift it up and set it aside. Next, there's 2 more plastic clips up here. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4 down in here. These ones do require you to lift the head before removing. While we're here, if you have the Toyota radar in the front, maybe a front end camera, any wiring that attaches to the front of this grill, you want to go ahead and unplug that now. This one had the front end camera, we've already loosened that. And if you had the safety sense, there would be the clips right here where you would just unplug and then you'd be able to remove the bumper. The last thing we need to remove here in the middle is this 1 10mm bolt. The next thing we need to remove on both sides are these 3 bolts here on the front of the bumper. Now we've got to remove all the hardware that attaches the bottom of the bumper to the front of the vehicle. There's going to be 2 bolts on this side, 2 in the middle, and 3 on this side. Now we're going to begin to pop this bumper loose. Right here there's a plastic pin that the bumper's over, so you actually have to lift the plastic over that. If you yank on it hard, you'll break this. There's also these clips right here. If you just put a little pressure on them with a flathead screwdriver, they will slide out of the tint that's right there. With all that loose, we now can pull outward on our bumper. It's held in right here with tension clips, so you just give it a pull. And that all pops loose. The other thing we want to do while we're over here is reach into where our fog light is and unplug the fog light from the bumper. We're going to hold the bumper now because when we pull this loose, there's really nothing holding the bumper skin to the vehicle anymore. Now that the bumper cover's off, we need to go ahead and remove our crash bar. This is held on by 4 bolts on each side. You can pull all these bolts out. There's actually a little hook on the crash bar that holds this up, so it's not going to fall down on you. You can just take all the bolts out. With the 4Runner all set, now we can focus on getting this bumper cover trimmed. The first thing we got to do though is remove the center piece, which is pretty simple. There are a bunch of these white clips all around in here. You simply push down and pull the clip out. To do our trim, it's pretty easy. The bumper is designed to hide all of your cuts. So your goal is to just make nice clean cuts, but you don't have to fixate on doing them perfect. It's all going to get covered up. And what we're going to do is, do you see this line right here that trim piece left on? That's going to be our guide for our top cut along here. So we're going to cut right along there. And then as we get to the sides, we're going to trim so that this lip remains a little bit. So about a 1/2 inch from this bottom groove, we're going to come up and we're going to trim up into here and then over here. Pretty much following the line of that black trim that was on there previously. We're just going to follow that line. I like to use a cutoff wheel. You can do this with sharp knives, die grinders, all kind of different things. All I got to say is make sure to wear eye protection, and this plastic can get pretty hot and burn you, so just be cautious. After I did my trim, I'm going to come through here and just, remove all this mess that's on here. It all just comes off pretty quickly. I like to use a Scotch-Brite pad or like a piece of sandpaper to just kind of go over the edges and make them so they're not sharp. Another note on the trim, now that you can see it with the bumper installed, is this lip right here is going to push up against this bumper if it's not trimmed properly. I had said just a moment ago about a 1/2 inch, but I want you to be aware that you can adjust how this sits based on the way you trim it. I actually love how tight this all is, and I like to leave a little bit down here because it's putting pressure on the plastic and it's keeping it from moving around. We also have a mount that helps with that, but I like it to have a little bit of tension right here. If you want this to flush out a little bit more, just trim it down to like a 1/4 inch and this will sit nice and flush for you. It's up to you guys how you want to do it. I like keeping this stuff secure so that your fog light doesn't jiggle too much. So that's why I trimmed this one this way, but it's up to you. Before your bumper cover goes back on, also remember to remove the air dams. There's one plastic clip on each side, and then they just twist and pull away. Just like you saw, now with everything all trimmed up, we're gonna put our bumper cover back on. What we're gonna do is slide it on from the front, and then I like to get these two pins for the top of the grill and put them in place so that I know it's not gonna fall down. Now I'm simply gonna work it back in the way that we took it off. I'm gonna push my pinches back in, put my bolts back in, at least in the fender well, and put all my pins and clips in. We're gonna leave this off, so don't worry about that, but we're gonna get this put back in. Before we start pushing this in, remember, we gotta reconnect our fog light first. So grab your pigtail, plug it in. With that plugged in, we're gonna start by lifting the bumper up into position, and it's gonna just clip right back in as easy as it came out. Now we're gonna go and put our fender liner back into position. Slide these where they need to go. This plastic's gonna wanna fight you, so you gotta sit and get it all tucked in. But once you get it all in there, it just clips right back in place. And now we're gonna put our bolts in. A quick note, there should be two fat ones and a skinny one. The skinny one goes on top and the two fat ones go into the black clips. Same as the other side, fog light, 3-bolt. Now we're gonna put our 4 clips back in here and our bolt in the center. Last, we're gonna plug our safety sense back in if we have that, any front end cameras. Now's the time to get all those wires and clips tidied up that you've taken off. And then we're gonna put the bumper on. Now we're gonna put the bumper onto the 4Runner. If you notice, there's 4 holes on each side. What we're gonna do is put the bumper up and put 1 bolt in on each side to take the weight off of us. And then we're gonna go ahead and put the rest of the bolts back in. You guys are gonna watch me do this by myself. I highly recommend that you get a friend. I've been doing this a long time and I know how to do it without hurting myself. We don't want you to get hurt, so please be safe. When we put this bumper in, there were a couple obstacles to get around I want to acknowledge really quick. This right here needs to get, the front of the grill needs to fit between the winch and the bumper. So as you're going up, make sure that you get that fed in between here. It'll fit, it's tight, but it'll go in. Also, if you have the TRD skid plate, the bumper has to go over the top of it. When you're coming in, you might bump into the skid plate, but you have to lift the bumper up and over this lip right here. If you do those two things, you'll be able to get the bumper pushed up against the frame and then put in 1 bolt on each side like we talked about. With it up here now being held in place, we're gonna go ahead and put all our other bolts in. When this bumper is on here, there is a little bit of slop in the holes to give you room, but I have to actually lift up on this bumper a little bit to get some of the bolts to line up. When there's a lot of weight on here, it could cause them to not be straight. So just lift on the bumper and that will allow you to get all your bolts in. With the 3 outside bolts in, we're now gonna do the single bolt on the inside. With all of our bolts in loose, we're now gonna adjust the bumper left to right. The mounts are slotted so that you can get this centered up perfectly between the grill here. So now's the time to get it where you want it, and then we're gonna go ahead and tighten down all of our bolts. We're getting close. This is gonna be one of your final steps right here, and these mounts go inside and they help secure the bottom of your bumper from flapping around. There is a passenger and a driver one, and this is how they would be oriented in the vehicle. So this lip is pointing up, and it's hard to see, but they are pointing backwards a little bit. Your bumper and everything is going to come up flush onto here, and we're going to put our bolt in. And then this bolts to the bumper, and we're going to put our bolts in from the side. All right, so I have my mount in hand. Again, this lip is facing the front of the vehicle, and the mount is going to be pointed backwards a little bit. These two threaded fasteners go to these two holes right here on the bumper, and we're going to put our bolt in from the inside. When we put this in there, make sure that you're over the top of the bumper cover before you put your bolts in. With these two bolts in, we're going to leave them loose, and now we're going to take our final bolt, put it through the bumper cover and into the mount. We're also going to come back and put this bolt back in right here. With our bumper all installed, our fenders mounted, there's only two things left to handle. One is wiring the winch, and the other one is putting our top trim piece back on. For the winch, you're going to have your positive and negative. This customer has a very nice cover for his wires, but you're basically just going to route it across the front, through the hole in your firewall, and make your electrical connections under the hood. Last but not least, we're going to put our trim piece back on. The same buttons from before. All I like to do is push down so that the head is pushing up now. You slide it into the hole, clip it back in. That completes our installation for today. Please go to caliraisedled.com for more 4Runner accessories or to reach out for technical support. Thank you. Hi, this is really cool. I like bumpers, they're fun and stuff. You want me to talk louder? I'm pretty tired today, so you're not gonna get a lot of loudness out of me. The first step is to prepare, Our first step today is to get our